critical thinkers, public speakers, and they debate.
And we have doctors, we have nurses and midwives. But you're the one who read the article and said that yes.
Introducing the iDebate TV Championship, where the best schools in Rwanda battle against each other, resolving conflicts without resorting to violence, solving problems creatively using debate. This is iDebate TV Championship.
Thank you for tuning in. You're watching the iDebate TV Championship. My name is David, and I'm always your host. We're back with another episode of the quarterfinals as two schools battle for a place in the semi-finals. Today is quite an interesting day. It always is, and even today is so. Now, our motion is this house would sacrifice economic growth for the good of the environment. Should we have only electric-fueled cars or the opposite? Well, that's what we're going to be discussing today. Now, the teams, the two sides that are here battling for this one place. The proposition is none other than GS Saint Bernadette Save. And they are taking on the New Explorers Girls Academy, NEGA, as the opposition. We can't wait to see what today holds for us. Now, the judges. Judge Sandrine Mobieyi. Judge Aimé Isezerano. And the man on the team is Christian Bahire. Now, the man on the team, Christian Bahire, how are you feeling today?
All good, all good.
Yes, it's all good. Now, you're known to be one of the toughest judges on the team. So, hey, are you going to go easy on them or rather the opposite?
Okay, so with that, I don't know what I could say with the issue of being the hardest one. I don't know. But what we're going to do is we promise you guys a fair judgment, and we believe you all know what you're supposed to be doing, because the motion says this house would sacrifice economic growth for the good of environment. So we're looking for those two worlds, the one that does so and the one that does something else, which one will convey us more, and then you vote for that one. So that's it.
Thank you very much, Judge Christian. Well, we're going to take a trip around both worlds and see which one is better. My job here is done. I take it over to Judge Christian to commence today's debate.
Okay, so no any further ado, let's please receive the first speaker from side proposition.
Thank you, everyone. I'm here by the names of Kevin Lusagara Irere, and I'm here to propose the motion we're having today. This house would sacrifice economic growth for the good of the environment. I'm going to start explaining the key terms. Would. Would is used in expressing a conditional mood. Sacrifice. Sacrifice is the giving up something valued for the sake of something else regarded as more important. Environment is more important than economic growth. That's what we're saying. Economic growth. Economic growth is the persistent increase in amount of goods and services produced per head of the population over a given period of time. Environment is the sum total of all the living elements, which are human beings, animals, plants, forests, fisheries, and birds, and non-living elements, which are water, land, sunlight, rocks, and air, and their effects that influence human life. The good environment we're talking about is the sustainable environment that can regenerate itself. Those information come from the Oxford Languages Dictionary, dear judges. So when would we sacrifice? We are going to say when we need to sacrifice. We would sacrifice economic growth when situations, circumstances affect the environment in an irreversible way. High-level pollution, which is the pollution of degree 3. Dear judges, you're wondering the degree 3 of pollution, what it is. According to World Weather Attribution, WWA, there are 3 degrees of pollution. There's degree 1, degree 2, and degree 3, which are going to be explained by my other speakers. But the degree 3 we're talking about is the pollution with irreversible effects that cause permanent damage to the environment, such as nuclear waste and dangers like viruses and pandemics. With the With a good example, during the COVID-19, that was a situation that came harming the environment. In that case, we sacrificed economic growth for the good environment. There is this transport and tourism services that was sacrificed, which would have boosted the economic growth. But in that case, we chose to save the environment. So in any case that occurs and is likely to cause the irreversible harm to the environment, we are doing the same. We are doing the sacrifice. At some point, the environment will be such a problem that we'll have to spend billions of billions. Therefore, the economic growth will suffer. But if we wait for the problems to come, we will experience droughtlines, floods, epidemics. All these things are going to ask for a lot of resources from our government. And these resources won't be used to stimulate the economic growth again. And that is why we're going to save the environment, because if we do not save the environment, we would be cutting the branch on which we sit, because economic growth depends on the environment. All raw materials that we use in production of goods that come from that we need for the economic activities, for the economic growth, come from the environment. The water we drink and use in production of those beverages and alcoholic drinks that we use for economic growth come from the environment. Metals we use to manufacture machines, vehicles, construction materials, all are extracted from the environment. That's why we need the environment before the economic growth. There is this an article from the New York Times entitled "Carbon Dioxide Levels Are Highest in Human History." They said that in 2021, 36 billion tons of carbon dioxide were pumped into the atmosphere by human activities to achieve economic growth. That is good, but this is the highest level in human history. The article says that this increase will have negative effects like death of people, increased flooding, more extreme heat, worsening wildfires, and this is putting future generations at risk, as said by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration officials. In the Paris Agreement, an international treaty on climate change that was adopted in Paris on 12 December 2015, countries set a goal to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius by reducing their greenhouse gas emissions. As today, average global temperatures are now about 1.1 degrees Celsius, higher than expected. With all this, if we do not sacrifice economic growth for the good of the environment, we would be putting future generations in danger, as well our planet Earth. And my second speaker is going to be explaining different about the degrees. She's called Muzirangonidina, and the third speaker is and by that, dear judges, we advocate for the good environment before the economic growth. I rest my case.
I would firstly like to ask you one question. If you sacrifice the economic growth, if you're supporting the environment,
Yes.
then do you think you can protect the environment without money?
Yes, we can.
How?
There are very different measures that you can use without needing money. There is this community work like Umuganda. We're going to be using it to protect the environment. And if you do the Umuganda, you're not going to be needing the money for that protection. That is a very small example that I'm giving you that can help you preserve the environment without money.
What are the materials which are required in order to sustain the environment?
There are these hands that are also able to do what you feel like you want me to say, something that can be bought, but there's also hands that you can be used instead of those raw materials that you need me to tell you.
Well, thank you very much, dear speaker.
Yes.
So you're saying that we could use different measures to provide for the environment. Then you say human beings are part of the environment. How are people going to survive without money?
Not everything that needs money in this world. We're going to be needing the economic growth. I did not deny it. But the economic growth that is going to reach the level of the irreversible level, that is the economic growth we're going to sacrifice. We're not saying that the economic growth is bad for your information. Economic growth is good, that's perfect. But the economic growth that is going to lead to the irreversible harm to the environment, we're going to sacrifice that economic growth, dear fellows.
I want you to make it clear what kind of economic growth is going to cause irreversible.
The pollution with irreversible effects that cause permanent damage to the environment, such as nuclear waste and dangers like viruses and pandemics. That time we are going to sacrifice economic growth for the sake of the good environment. Thank you, dear judges.
First speaker, opposition, please.
Thank you very much. I, as Wineza Allen from the opposition side, as the first speaker, I would first like to ask the proposition side. You say that not all tools, that not tools are required in Umuganda. Do you know what's done in Umuganda? Do you mean that all activities that are done in Umuganda, you can use your hands? That's very impossible. Tools that are needed to be used in Umuganda, they are bought, meaning that money is involved. Another thing the first speaker said that water which is used in production is going to be conserved by sacrificing economy. How is that water going to be useful to the human race if what is just going to be there without being used? That means the point of the economy being sacrificed is not effective. We as the opposition side, we are talking about how economic growth can be considered at the same time conserving the environment. Due to the click news from 1960 to 2021, 20% of Amazon forest was banned due to practices like poaching and bush burning for subsistence farming. This was a very big loss globally which was caused by non-economic practices. Another thing is that last year, 22nd May, Nyiragongo volcanic eruption, that calamity caused a very large loss to the country at large, and this is not an economic activity. Another thing the proposition side say that climate change is not caused by economic growth. It is caused by lack of absence of effective public policy designed to reduce greenhouse gas emission. And another thing I want to remind everyone here is that economic growth is something we can't let go because it's very productive to the economy and to the world at large. Economic growth leads to industrialization, which is productive to people, modernized agriculture, urbanization, developed economic system, and it also promotes international relations. The different environmental summits that were carried out all over the world, starting from 1992 to 2021. In 1992, a summit called Rio de Janeiro was carried out so as to see how economic growth can be considered at the same time environmental sustainability. Again, on 11 December 1997, Kyoto Protocol was also carried out to review if the policies that were considered in this Rio de Janeiro was productive, and it was progressing. That's why, again, on 31st October to 13th November last year, UK hosted the 26th UN Climate Change and Environmental Protection Conference so as to see if the climate is being sustained and if there are some effects that happened are going to be considered. We, as the proposition said, we don't agree to sacrifice the economy because the economy leads to improved standards of living, saving the ecosystem, proper utilization of the resources. And again, how did Rwanda get to handle this problem of economic growth with environmental sustainability, which goes in hand as sustainable development? There was creation of special economic zones, removal of pollutant bags, use of organic matter with chemical fertilizers. There were also this thing of wetland reclamation and conservation, and there was development of green cities, which was done all over different parts of Rwanda so as to promote environmental sustainability. And there was, again, shifting from non-renewable to renewable sources of energy, and there was a set-up of institutions like REMA and other environmental protection institutions. Thank you.
Question, please.
Yes?
Is Umuganda a work that is sustaining the economy or is sustaining the environment?
It's sustaining the environment at the same time considering economic growth.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Another thing is say that the economic growth is good because it increases the standards of living. I want you to tell me the standards of living of who? Exactly. So what are you going to do if you're going to boost that economic growth and put in danger the environment?
So for Rwanda is practicing a consideration of economic growth at the same time environmental sustainability, and people are having this standard of living, their income level is increasing, their level of savings is increasing. So I don't get what the problem is.
Okay, I would like to ask you, prove us the impugns you're having against our protection of the environment that is leading to the economic growth.
We hold anything against the environment. We hold everything against sacrificing the economy.
Second speaker proposition, please.
And by the names of Dina, let me begin with the opposition side with what they brought us. They gave us an example of Rwanda. They told us that Rwanda banned polythene bags. That's a sacrifice. I'm going to show you how the sacrifice of this banning of polythene bags led to a good environment, which is we're coming for. We should sacrifice. We're not saying, they told us they should sacrifice, we shouldn't sacrifice economy. We ain't sacrificing economy. We are sacrificing the economic growth. Then, beginning with the polythene bags, an article from the Global Citizen entitled Eliminating Plastic Bags in Rwanda Saved Lives and the Economy tells us that in 2008, Rwanda completely banned polythene bags due to their negative impacts to the environment, including pollution of soil, water, and air. Banning plastic bags released toxic pollutants into the air. Rwanda sacrificed its economic growth because more taxes were being collected from plastic industries. That's why they sacrificed their judge. That's what you're talking about, sacrificing. And then they came and told us non-economical practices. Dear judge, we told you, when would we sacrifice? We would sacrifice when the project they're approving, it's pollution with irreversible effects that cause permanent damage to the environment, such as nuclear wastes and dangers like viruses and pandemics. That's when we would sacrifice this project. Then they came and told us water, how is water to be useful to the human. Dear judge, without protecting this environment, we're having dirty water. We're not having water for drinking. We ain't having water for cooking. We ain't having water for washing our clothes, which will lead to these diseases that we're talking about. And then that economic growth that you're advocating to raise, what is it going to be useful for in the environment? So, Judge, another thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to tell you, how are we going to sacrifice? That will be the main question here. We're to sacrifice into 3 ways. My first speaker told you that sacrifice is foregoing something that is worth important than the one that you've left. So we're to sacrifice in 3 ways. We have whole sacrifice, partial sacrifice, and postponed sacrifice. Whole sacrifice, this was really true during the COVID-19. The whole sacrifice during the COVID-19 at the start, they postponed travels. The transport and the airport airlines were completely stopped, and they really saved the people, and now the economic growth is on and the people are saved. And then another thing, we're talking about partial. Partial sacrifice, this is when they say that a few people per bus will travel. Those people that would have traveled in that bus, they would have brought an increase in the economic growth. But then now, they sacrifice that economic growth partially, and then postponed sacrifice. Postponed sacrifice, it's when you postpone the project that will be effective before you get the alternative. That is how it went. They postponed the students from going to school. Those are education services of which the students will be giving in school fees, which is beneficial. But they postpone those actions in order to protect the environment. And my first speaker told you we're advocating for a sustainable, we're not sacrificing to completely ban the economic growth, but want to achieve a sustainable economic growth. That's why we told you that in order to achieve the economic growth that will go on, we have to postpone some activities, not until we get measures that will save them. That's what my speaker told you. And then another thing, Judge, my first speaker told you lots of things. They came and told us creation of special, like CREMA economic zones. Those economic zones were being important. That's why we came and told you this is something that our sacrifice, we're not completely burning, but we want to achieve a sustainable economic growth with the environment, because the economic growth is for the environment. No environment, no economic growth, dear Judge. Therefore, I rest my case.
Dear Speaker, so you say that there wouldn't be water due to pollution. But as we know, economic growth is all about increasing quantity of goods and services, which in return leads to the increase in income. So if those goods and services they are producing also clean water. As we see in Nyanje, all those packaged water, which is safe to drink. So there is no problem of loss of water in the ecosystem. So there is also this, you also said about gases that are being emitted into the air. So there is, it seems like you don't know that there are different tools that are brought by several environmental protection controls, like SCEMS from economics.help.com. So I want you to tell me why I want you to let me understand your argument about how there is going to be loss of water in the ecosystem.
I didn't say there will be loss of water, but I said there will be having affected water, polluted water. That's what I said, my dear opponent.
Inyanja and Nile water is polluted.
In Nyanja, that's what you're saying within the sacrifices. They sacrifice the money they would have used in producing other things they put into refining the water industry. So that's the sacrifice.
That's actually supporting the economic growth. So as you say that, it seems like you're on the side of economic growth more than the environment.
We're not fighting to protect the environment. We are sacrificing to achieve both sustainable economic growth.
Prioritizing economic growth, yet we're dealing with sacrifice.
No environment, no economic growth. I repeat what I told you.
And no economic growth. Part of the environment is dead.
It's really dead, the environment, because the economic growth is for the environment. And if I told people killed, what's the use of the environment? So
and economic growth
is for the environment.
Is for the environment.
Wow. Rest my case.
Okay, so now we're going to the second speaker, team opposition. Please, ladies, be there.
My name is Rania Umutoni. I'm the second speaker from the opposition side, and we're opposing the motion, which is well stated that this house will sacrifice the economic growth for the good of the environment. Dear ladies and gentlemen, here we're not sacrificing the economic growth for the good of the environment. I will start by refuting what the second speaker from the proposition side have just said. She just said that with the economic growth is just there for the environment. That means if we're not having the effective economic growth, there is no way we're going to protect this environment. Dear ladies and gentlemen, these are the ways that I'm going to show you how we can achieve the economic growth at the same time preserving the environment. Dear ladies and gentlemen, in Rwanda they implemented a situation which is called special economic zone, which is the concentration of the industries in one area so that they can avoid the bad fumes or from the gases which they were talking about, the things of pollution. That means the fumes from the industries are no longer going into the atmosphere because they are being pumped together into the tanks before neutralized to the people. That means the industries are being there, which means it's going to increase the quantity of goods and services which are being produced while also protecting the natural environment. Another thing, ladies and gentlemen, Rwanda removed the use of the polythene bags, and 90% of many countries are adopting this method because when you use polythene materials in the industrial packaging, that means you're going to be increasing the quantity of goods which are produced in an effective way while also protecting the natural environment. Another thing, ladies and gentlemen, Rwanda is using the chemical fertilizers which is mixed with the organic manure, and this is to avoid the soil fertility and also the land to avoid the land pollution. Which means, dear ladies and gentlemen, we are finding the ways on how we can increase the quantity of goods and services while also protecting the natural environment. Rwanda set up the institutions like REMA. REMA, it's an institution which is there to protect the natural environment, but we are protecting the natural environment while also producing the goods and quantities which are in need. The money got from those goods and services are being used for the environmental protection. Ladies and gentlemen, can you imagine when you have the environment, you have trees there. We have the forest, but where are you going to get the money to pay those people who are the guards there so that the people cannot cut down the trees? That means, firstly, we need the money. After getting the money, then we are going to be able to protect the natural environment, as we are able to show you how we are going to achieve the economic growth at the same time protecting the natural environment due to the above measures which I have talked. Another thing, there is the development of green cities in the country, in the places of Kinyinya, Kigali, which was developed on 28th November 2019. And this was put in the country in order to protect the natural environment, but while also not forgetting the goods and services, not living around the industries which are being created in the country, as we were able to show you how these industries are going to work without polluting the environment. Ladies and gentlemen, in economic growth, we're going to achieve the modernized agriculture by using organic manures, which is mixed with chemical fertilizers, so as to avoid the destruction of the air pollution. Another thing, economic growth will lead to the infrastructure development. So, ladies and gentlemen, from the sources of information, which we are .art.com, which was stating that Rwanda is achieving sustainable development at a rate of 83%. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I want to ask you, with a polluted environment, is there going to be an economic growth? If yes, how?
Come again?
With the polluted environment, is there going to be an economic growth? And if yes, how?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. She's asking me how we are going to achieve this economic growth without polluting the environment, right?
No. Will a polluted environment make a part in the economic growth?
Okay, maybe you're not getting about what I said. We showed you the measures which we are going to use, which are already implemented in the country, of how we can achieve the economic growth while not polluting the environment. So I still don't, maybe you didn't understand about my arguments, but I talked about the special economic zone, which were implemented in order to avoid the air pollution, the bad fumes from the atmosphere, which means if we are going to be able to be increasing the quantity of goods and services while also preserving the natural environment, that is what we need. We cannot sacrifice the economic growth for the good of the environment. For us, we are supporting both the environment and also the economic growth, since we are able to show you that. Another question?
I'd like to ask you, will your measures bring an advancement in economic growth with a good environment?
Ladies and gentlemen, we were able to show you a clear example of Rwanda. Rwanda is a good country, which shows how it is. I told you the percentage of how Rwanda is increasing the economic growth at a rate of 83%. 83.7%, ladies and gentlemen. We are achieving this economic growth while also sustaining the natural environment. So, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I rest my case.
Okay, so now let's receive the third proposition. The only boy debating this round, please take the stage.
I'm Hubito Ishimwe Arsene from the proposition side. And refuting what the opposition side firstly said, they talked about the umuganda. And with the umuganda, we were able to show that the umuganda is an action that is going to be sustaining the environment. So with the sustaining the environment, that's the element that is going to ensure the environment which is good. And they also talked about the climate change is not caused by the economic growth. Yes, the climate change is not caused by the economic growth, but it is caused by the economic growth with the absence of the policies that are going to be sustaining the environment. Another thing that, point of correction, from the first speaker, she said that UK held a meeting on the environmental and development, but I want to correct her that it held UNCD. That UNCD is an organization in the UN that looks up on the environment and the development also, whereby with the facts, the second speaker also said that they are taking measures, so as they are taking measures to clean the environment. So taking measures is part of the sustaining the environment. So with the sustaining of the environment, that's a good environment. And I think they didn't clearly heard what we said. Me, I'm going to be talking about the relationship between the economic growth and the environment or the nature. So with the increase in GDP per capita, they may cause an environment degradation or environmental degradation or a reduction in the environment damage according to the Kuznets curve, whereby it has three theories. And the first one is the limit theory. With the limit theory, the environment itself forces us to sustain it, whereby after the level that the environment is going to be polluted, the environment itself forces us to sustain it so as to get a sustainable development, whereby the growth is not just a single rise, whereby they were saying that they are not going to sustain, they are not going to sacrifice the environment, so by they will be having a growth, a once growth, and that's not a growth, because a growth is not a single erupts, that growth is a continuous erupts, whereby the second theory is the rest bottom, whereby by this, the rest bottom, at the first time there is no consideration of the environment, but after there's the consideration of the environment, and this is caused by the consumption effect. What I mean by the consumption effect, just as on the production side, the organization managers work to increase environmental sustainability, but on the consumption side, consumers are not only buying green, but changing patterns of consumption. That also help to reduce environmental damage along with the consumption effect. I want the opposition side to clearly hear what my first speaker and the second speaker were talking about. One, we are not denying the environment growth, the economic growth, but we are sacrificing the economic growth without the policies that are going to be sustaining the environment. And they gave us the crucial examples of the COVID-19 measures, the polythene bags ban, and whereby with that economic growth that we'll be talking about in the COVID-19 cases, whereby the measures are not taken, there is going to be an economic growth without the sustainability of the environment. And the economic growth and the environment works hand in hand.
How is the ban of polythene bag and economic growth sacrifice?
Okay, what the polythene bags ban is part of the economic sacrifice, whereby the money that will be held from the taxes maybe, or from the selling of the polythene bags are going to be sacrificed. So with that sacrifice, with the sacrifice of the money or the taxes that the government will be earning, that's an economic sacrifice. And buying them, it's ensuring a sustainable development, which you guys are missing, that an economic growth with the absence of environmental policies that is going to be sustaining the environment to get a better one, we are sacrificing it, as the example of the polythene bags as you are talking about.
What is sustainable development?
A sustainable development is a continuous development whereby we are not compromising the future generation and the present generation.
Okay, another thing that I would like to ask you, dear speaker, you are saying that you are going to protect the environment, right?
Yes.
But I want to ask you a question. Can you live without money?
Yes.
How?
I can live without money in the way that whereby I will be having all the basic needs nearby me. I won't be needing the money to use in other things. With the basic needs that are going to be sacrificing my life, I'm not going to need the money, and what the money will be used for.
You mean with the natural environment? You mean with the trees? You mean with water? You mean with the green grasses? You are going to get all the basic needs without money?
Yeah, the opposition speaker. We're saying that we are sacrificing the economic growth that doesn't have the policies for the sustainable environment. And the measures to be taken for sustaining the environment, that the measures are going to be ensuring a good environment. And that's what we are advocating for with the sacrifice of an economic growth that doesn't have the policies that are going to be sustaining the environment.
Okay, so now we can receive the last speaker from Team Opposition. Please, stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is something that the third speaker from the proposition side has mentioned. The third speaker said that sustainable development puts in consideration the future generation. So I was wondering, with all the trees and water and all the green grasses, there is no way the future generation is going to feed on that without having economic growth, without having money to help it in achieving several goals. The proposition side say that sacrificing polythene bags was sacrificing the economy. But this wasn't sacrificing the economy because the gap that has been put by the stopping of production of polythene bags was filled by production of paper bags. So there is no economic sacrifice in sacrificing polythene bags. So also the proposition side, we told them that no economic growth, the part of the environment is dead. Since the human part, or the biosphere part of the environment, needs food to survive, they need money to survive, so they need different things to survive. And also, if for example, the animals in the national park doesn't have food to eat, so they are going to feed on each other, which later will lead to the extinction of those animals. So, yeah, and there is also the point that the first speaker is saying that there is they said about nuclear emissions that are causing irreversible effects to the environment. But as we know, nuclear emissions harms the benefits outweighs the harms, because nuclear emissions get released in the air by accident, and in case those accidents happen, that's when it's going to cause different effects. But nuclear emissions, if they are used well, they produce large amounts of electricity and provide lots of energy that are going to be used. They talked about greenhouse and global warming, which is caused by the industries that are releasing fumes into the atmosphere. But as we saw, there are several measures, as my first speaker said, measures that and tanks that are being put in the space of localized farms to neutralize the air and make it good and safe to breathe. Well, I rest my case.
What are you sacrificing for another?
Okay, I hope you understood what we've said. Currently, we are in sustainable development. Sustainable development considers the future generation. So we're developing and also the environment.
To mean that the economic growth, the sustainable development that you are saying on, rely on the sustainable environment.
Sustainable development relies on economic growth in hand with the environment, since we're considering the future generation.
Yes, to mean that with the sustainable environment, there's going to be an economic development.
I didn't mention economic development. I'm talking about economic growth, not economic development. Those are two different things.
Okay, I would like to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Nuclear emissions, you have told us the gases are left in the air by accident. Should we let people die by accident? And how many deaths are we going to wait for? We're losing people, and that's the environment.
I'd like to tell you that those accidents rarely happen. And you know that even if we leave the nuclear gases, even if you're saying that we sacrifice economic growth, those people are not going to feed on nothing. Are they going to eat grass?
What are you doing to prevent the people from dying?
There are measures that are being taken to put together, to make the nuclear gases stay in place where they cannot go out.
Okay, so well done to all of you. That was amazing. Now you're going to have 1 minute, and then you give us your reply speech, and side opposition will be first. Thank you. Okay, so now let's receive the speaker from side opposition to give us their reply speech. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm coming back as Muton Rania, and I'm here for the reply speech. So, dear judges, this was the motion of the debate. This House would sacrifice the economic growth for the good of the environment. And the proposition side, they talked about the pollutions. And dear judges, we're able to show you how we're going to achieve the economic growth while also not polluting the environment. And they talked about the Umuganda program. We asked them a question. Can we achieve the Umuganda program without using the materials, without using the money, without using all the requirements needed in order to achieve that environment without the money? And they said that we can achieve the environmental protection without the money. Since we're able to show them how we can go hand in hand with the economic growth in order to get the money, after getting the money, then we conserve the natural environment which we want. Dear judges, we talked about how the Rwanda promoted this special economic zone. It promoted the ban of polythene bags. It promoted the use of organic manure and chemical fertilizers. There was the wetland conservation. We talked about the institutions which are implemented in the country in order to avoid the environmental destruction. But dear judges, they never talked about anything about our points. That means all our points were still standing. Since we're able to show them how we're going to achieve this environmental protection while also getting the money, increasing the goods and services which we need in the country. Dear judges, we're able to show you how a good example of how Rwanda is achieving the environmental conservation, which at a rate of 83.7%, dear judges, they never talked about anything, which means they were all agreeing about what we said. Thank you, dear judges. I arrest my case.
Okay, now let's receive side proposition for the reply speech. Thank you.
So thank you, and by the names of Dina coming back for the reply speech. What they said, what we said,
And how did the debate go? We had a motion that states that this House would sacrifice economic growth for the good of the environment. They asked us, can we live without money? And of which we told them the sacrifice that we're making a sacrifice for the level 3 pollution, which with irreversible effects that cause permanent damage to the environment, such as the nuclear emissions. That's sworn. They came and told us the banning of polythene bags. I came and proved them that was a sacrifice by the government. They came and I proved them how we would to sacrifice through the 3 stages that I told you: postponement sacrifice, partial sacrifice, whole sacrifice. They told us to come and give and tell us the measures that they were going to come for. They didn't prove any measures. They were instead telling us the measures that are already taking place. Another thing, they told us, my third speaker told them about they told us that the climate change that isn't caused by the economic growth, which we told them. The sacrifice that we're making, the climate change is caused by the absence of policies that are sustaining the government. And then my third speaker also told them that the measures that the government took, they were purposely for protecting the environment, which is what we were coming for. We also came and told them that the sacrifice will come. They asked us, can we live without money? Living without money, there are other activities. We told them that the sacrifice we're making, still there are things that are damaging the environment. They themselves told us about the nuclear emissions. Nuclear emissions, we consider them as pollution 3, which is affecting the environment. And then we said we would sacrifice, which they told us they happen by accidents. We asked them a question like, would we let people die by accidents, which they were not able to prove. Another thing, they came and told us they didn't bring anything new because whatever they told us was already taking place. Therefore, Judge, I rest my case.
Will we sacrifice economic growth for the good of the environment? Well, we're about to find out. Now, we'll let the judges go so they can decide who is taking this one. For today, now, judges, you're free to leave and take your time. We'll be right back. The iDebate TV Championship continues, and we're back. The judges are back, and they are back with their verdicts. Judges, do you have the verdict?
Yes, we do.
And what did you base on?
Sandra will tell you more about that.
Thank you so much. What we based on is basically, as Christian said before, it was more of seeing which word was better. A word where economic growth was sacrificed, or a word where economic growth was not sacrificed. And so we did compare these 2 words, and that is when we came to the conclusion that MA is going to give you.
They came to a conclusion, and I can see from the nervous faces of both teams that this one is going to be quite an interesting one. So, hey, hand me the results. It is neatly folded in this paper that I'm unfolding right now. So much paper for just one word. Now, according to this team, our motion was this House would sacrifice economic growth for the good of the environment. The judges made their conclusions according to what they heard, and they do believe that the following team was indeed correct, and that team is... You smiling at me will not make you win. But yes, the team is the proposition side, Sam Bernadette. I guess the smile did work in the end. Right, so according to them, this House would sacrifice economic growth for the good of the environment. So hey, according to them, we'll be seeing more electric cars rather than the fuel ones. Now, thank you for tuning in. This has also secured a place for Saint Bernadette in the semi-finals, so make sure you don't miss this one out. My name is David, and this was the iDebate TV Championship. Stay tuned for more.